We want now, after these images and the maps that we saw from Tobias and Markus, introduce a bit the topic of wool and have a reaction about what we saw. And we were talking until now about the Alpine area. It's clear we are in an Alpine space project, but we are in a broader national global context. We saw that very well on the maps that were shown before by Tobias Chilas and Markus Lambrecht. And we saw and we know what's the actual situation of the textile value chain in this regard. So, and I would like to discuss it also from this broader perspective. I would like to invite here on the stage Ms. Dalena White, who is the Secretary General of the International Wool Textile Organization, which is the global authority for standards in the wool textile industry, encompassing all stages of the wool textile pipeline from farm to retail. And I would like to invite you here on the front to have a So we talked about the Alpine level, and but can you give us a bit the broader perspective? Where are we with wool at a global level representing your organization? And sometimes it's a bit hard to perceive this when we are talking on a local level. So can you give us a bit an insight on from your perspective, please?
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation and for the lovely presentations this morning. It was really heartwarming to see how many people are working so passionately to support the industry here locally. I think the synopsis that you saw from the charts in the end, they really showed a worldwide trend. Unfortunately, we are losing wool sheep farmers around the world globally. Our production figures are shrinking. Our farmers are certainly not earning enough to keep them on the farm, and that does not make the wool sheep farming practice sexy for our next generation. So why would a young man go to farm or a young lady go to farm if they are not sure that they can support their family in future? Our wool price is down, so the EMI in Australia, where most of the wool is traded, has been trading down because of mostly geopolitical unrest here in Europe. As consumers, we don't like to spend when we're not sure what's happening in the world around us, and it's a very uncertain period that we're living through at the moment. The luxury market was mostly untouched during COVID, which was amazing. People were happy to lounge around at home in cashmere and wool and still carry fancy handbags for some other reason. But after that, I think we came out of COVID with a sense of, we've dodged a bullet there, and let's go, let's get the economy back in action. And then Mr. Putin and other people decided to change the world for us. So we are in a position now where there's a lot of unrest, and that is not good for our front side of the market at the moment.
So this is the contextualization is very important for us now, because we are talking about value chains in the Alpine area, but we are in a project that wants to give more visibility to these local value chains. How much are they important for your organization?
It is vital for our organization because wool is currently 1% of global textile use, and therefore we are really small in a small fish in a big pond. And we really depend on each other for inspiration, for ideas, for support. And projects like these really showcase the people on the ground that are affected when things don't go the right way. And I think we're going to be speaking about policy in a little while. And for me, I would like to raise the flag in this forum as well that I don't think the policy is going the way of our industry. That I think the conversations have very much been hijacked by the fossil fuel fiber industries, and that our natural fiber industry really risk losing even more market share if we continue on this track. So there are some red flags in the industry from at the moment, but when I come to meetings like these, I really get inspired to hear the stories from our farmers. We are going to Australia in April, where we will speak to our Australian farmers who have been living through 7-year drought, And now for the past 3-4 years have had some reasonable rain. We can see that it's slightly lifting the sheep numbers on the farm again. But then we also need the wool price to lift for them to maintain their flocks.
Now, before going again to the Alps and inviting another guest here on stage, just a question. A project like this one, AlpTextyles, which is in this context, how can it help to also on a global level give insights or maybe solutions? Because sometimes we have the impression that some heritage-based solutions could be very similar to other areas and not only the Alpine area. Do you see some links on that and possibilities to also use the work we are doing on a project like this for your work?
Yes, absolutely. And we're coming to France for the International Wool Textile Organization conference in May 2025, and I was just earmarking speakers already because I think this message has to go out globally. I'm originally from South Africa. We have 11 official languages, we have many cultures, and we have seen how we can support our local people by putting their crafts on an international market. There are huge communities in South Africa just absolutely benefiting from telling the story. And two of our speakers here today told us how they are enabling front-side customers, brands, to find that cultural heritage to tell the story of their product. And it's a fantastic marketing opportunity, and many of our retailers are looking for those marketing opportunities. And I think those organizations that can enable that would play a huge role in supporting the wool industry here, but also globally. So I really am very excited about what you're doing.
Very much. So thank you also for giving us a bit the global context. But now I would like to come back to the Alps. And j'invite sur le plateau Pascal Gautrand. Oui, merci. Le directeur du Collectif Tricolor, délégué général. Oui. Délégué général, pardon.
Oui, merci.
Pardon. Donc, vous êtes le délégué général, moi je vais y arriver à la fin. Et donc, le collectif Tricolor, c'est pour les laine françaises l'association qui ressemble les éleveurs au vin, artisans, manufactures, acteurs de la création, de la distribution et territoire. Donc, c'est assez large comme champ d'activité. Et depuis quelque temps, vous êtes impliqué dans l'ambitieuse action de concertation des divers acteurs des filières lanières françaises, dont la prochaine étape est l'écriture d'une feuille de route qui est nationale, donc pour la France. Et ma question, c'est si vous pouvez maintenant partager un peu dans quelle direction vous êtes en train d'aller avec les filières lainières en France, et quelles sont les marges de coopération avec les autres pays européens, parce que nous, on est dans un contexte français, on est dans un cadre de coopération alpine dans ce cas-là. Et comment est-ce que vous voyez les possibilités dans ce cadre-là?
Tout d'abord, merci pour votre invitation. Le collectif Tricolor, donc depuis 2018, rassemble les différents maillons de cette filière. Pourquoi ? Parce que c'est vraiment réussir à restructurer les échanges avec des cultures aussi différentes que celles de l'élevage, que celles des industries de transformation, que celle également de la distribution pour aller parler à un consommateur et arriver à le toucher dans une époque où, comme les interventions précédentes l'ont bien démontré, la laine ne représente que très très peu en fait au niveau mondial. C'est un vrai challenge, mais c'est un challenge qui doit être collectif. C'est un challenge qu'un seul des maillons ne peut pas réussir à relever. C'est un challenge qui demande de vraiment s'appuyer sur des connaissances très diverses, de l'élevage, de l'agronomie, jusqu'à la technique, à la chimie, à des tas de types d'approches et de métiers différents, le marketing, évidemment. Longtemps, les laines locales ont été reléguées à une deuxième place, car depuis le 19e siècle, la laine au niveau mondial s'est structurée de manière très standardisée. On a choisi plus ou moins une race, le mérinos, comme vous l'avez montré sur les cartographies précédemment, qui est élevé de manière très différente de la façon dont on élève en Europe des troupeaux. Nous avons des moyennes européennes de 250 têtes à peu près dans une ferme, contre 10 000 têtes et plus dans l'hémisphère sud. Donc évidemment, toutes les méthodes qui ont été peaufinées depuis le 19e siècle pour traiter une laine de qualité, entre guillemets, ne sont pas du tout adaptables aux laines locales. Peut-être que le documentaire de Walter montrera tout un panel est très différent, mais c'est quelque part ce qui fait la richesse. Donc c'est un inconvénient dans le sens où c'est difficile d'obtenir une matière homogène à partir de tant d'hétérogénéité. Si je peux parler de la France, nous avons 59 races différentes, donc avec des typologies de laine vraiment très variées. Mais ça ne veut pas dire qu'il y a des races. Enfin, on peut toujours considérer que certaines qualités de laine sont plus qualitatives ou moins qualitatives, mais dans la réalité des choses, une laine qualitative pour un type d'usage n'est pas nécessairement une laine qualitative pour un autre type d'usage. Si on prend l'exemple du mérinos, il est effectivement très qualitatif pour faire un pull. Si je veux faire un matelas et que j'utilise du mérinos, ça va faire un matelas de très mauvaise qualité. Le mérinos n'a pas de ressort, n'aura pas de gonflant. Donc quelque part, ce problème devient presque un avantage aujourd'hui. Et je pense que c'est à nous tous, à toute la filière et à tous les acteurs qui la composent, de s'emparer de ce sujet-là. C'est sans doute le bon moment. Il croise des tas de problématiques sociétales différentes. C'est l'opportunité de mettre en avant une culture locale. C'est d'ailleurs l'objet de ce programme européen que vous menez. Il faut capitaliser sur cette diversité. C'est la biodiversité, mais c'est aussi la diversité des métiers, des approches, des cultures. Et c'est un champ incroyable que cette filière laine, car elle rassemble, elle recrée le dialogue entre des types de métiers, des types d'approches, entre le monde rural et le monde urbain, le monde de l'agriculture et celui de la création. On a vraiment une société complète qui peut être un véritable exemple vertueux. Mais pour cela, effectivement, il faut qu'on arrive à travailler ensemble. Il y a beaucoup de choses qui peuvent être faites à des niveaux très locaux. En revanche, il y a également tout un ensemble d'éléments pour lesquels, Dalena le disait, la laine au niveau mondial, c'est 1% des fibres qui sont utilisées par l'industrie. Donc ça représente vraiment très très peu. Donc la laine européenne ou la laine des Alpes, je vous laisse imaginer le pourcentage que c'est. Je ne l'ai pas calculé.
Mais quand même, il y a du sens à travailler aussi pour ce pourcent. On voit qu'il y a beaucoup d'enjeux. Ce 1%, c'est 1% du textile, mais l'enjeu de la production de la laine, ce n'est pas seulement le textile, on le voyait aussi dans l'image de Walter Agner, c'est tout l'impact que cette production de laine en Europe a sur le paysage, sur la biodiversité. Que ça, c'est pas, on ne le décrit pas dans l'1%. Le pourcent, c'est seulement un chiffre, mais disons tout le reste, on ne le voit pas dans l'1%. Donc c'est important de faire le travail que vous faites. De mettre
le marketing est important, le storytelling et la manière dont on va pouvoir raconter des choses concrètes en fait, qui sont issues du terrain, du paysage, qui façonnent nos paysages, est important. Mais il faut aussi prendre en compte les questions d'impact, par exemple. Aujourd'hui, c'est une question cruciale au niveau mondial, au niveau européen en particulier, avec un affichage environnemental qui devrait voir le jour un de ces jours, même s'il ne cesse d'être reporté. En France, au niveau français, nous travaillons aussi sur un affichage environnemental qui, lui, devrait voir le jour dans les prochaines semaines. Donc c'est vraiment très rapide et pour lequel nous avons réussi à faire inscrire une ligne de calcul d'impact qui soit spécifique aux races locales. Parce qu'aujourd'hui, il faut comprendre que quand vous faites une ACV sur un produit en laine, vous utilisez des données moyennes mondiales qui, du coup, sur les 1%, la plus grande partie de la production étant plutôt dans l'hémisphère sud avec des premières transformations en Chine, est calculée selon des règles qui sont absolument pas du tout les mêmes et donc ont des impacts qui ne sont absolument pas du tout les mêmes que les filières que vous avez montrées, les projets en local qui ne font pas cette boucle, qui déjà en termes d'élevage n'ont pas le même impact. Nous nous appuyons en Europe sur des élevages, et ça il faut vraiment l'avoir en tête, qui ne sont dédiés de manière prioritaire qu'à la production de viande ou de lait. Donc ça veut dire que la grande majorité des impacts environnementaux est déjà portée par ces premiers produits. Donc utiliser la laine, c'est non seulement du bon sens, mais c'est surtout une matière qui, du coup, a un impact bien moindre que la laine telle qu'on l'aperçoit au niveau mondial et qui est issue de troupeaux qui, en priorité, sont élevés pour ce produit. Donc là, c'est un second avantage sur lequel il faut impérativement capitaliser. Et ça, c'est pareil, il faut, là encore, ça n'est pas quelque chose qui peut être fait à un niveau très local. Nous avons initié une démarche nationale en France et aujourd'hui, nous souhaiterions pouvoir la partager avec d'autres pays européens de manière à pouvoir obtenir des calculs qui, par la suite, dans les prochaines ACV, permettront d'avoir une meilleure mesure d'impact, qui permettront aussi de pouvoir nous améliorer. Et juste pour conclure, sachez d'ores et déjà qu'avec les nouveaux calculs qui ont été présentés la semaine dernière par l'ADEME, donc qui est l'agence qui est rattachée au ministère de la Transition écologique en France, les impacts, puisque c'est un ensemble d'impacts, c'est pas juste le CO2, sont entre 5 et 9 fois moins impactants pour les laines locales que pour la laine en général, ce qui nous permet d'être un peu plus proche. Même si encore, effectivement, c'est assez rageant, les fibres synthétiques ont visiblement un meilleur impact. Donc là, il y a encore du travail à faire tous ensemble pour parvenir à changer ça.
Absolument, il y a beaucoup de travail à faire. Et maintenant, on va en Italie, de la France à l'Italie. J'ai le plaisir d'inviter ici Madame Patrizia Maggia. Elle est présidente de Agenzie Lane d'Italia, une agence qui existe depuis 1988. Donc, c'est une longue tradition qui fait des activités similaires à ceux que fait le Collectif Tricolor. Et il y a eu les aspects patrimoniaux les éléments patrimoniaux ont été très importants pour vous dans votre travail depuis 1988. Donc, il y a beaucoup de temps sur ça. Et la même question à vous aussi. Donc, quelle est la situation des filières italiennes? Et qu'est-ce que c'est la partie du patrimoine culturel que vous voyez important dans le travail de valorisation de la laine?
L'habillage est un acte agricole et je voudrais partir de là. Pouvoir trouver la durabilité dans ce qui représente avant tout l'éphémère, c'est-à-dire la mode, peut sembler une hérésie et au contraire, même la mode reine incontestée du consumérisme doit aujourd'hui nécessairement se comparer avec les coûts en termes d'impact environnemental de ce qui produit. Je crois que les vêtements doivent de plus en plus devenir des objets d'affection. Au-delà du temps et de mode, représenter notre identité et être porteur de valeurs. Et cela doit être de plus en plus un choix conscient, auquel est confronté un consommateur responsable et attentif, non seulement à la qualité esthétique de ce qu'il achète, mais aussi aux valeurs et à la bonne éthique de travail du vêtement qu'il porte. L'utilisation de fibres naturelles, en premier lieu la laine, devient alors un indice important. Valoriser une ressource devenue aujourd'hui un déchet spécial semble être avant tout un devoir moral. L'Agence Lane d'Italia, fondée en 1988 par Union Camere Nazionale, a pour objectif la valorisation de la laine indigène, oriente son expérience vers l'amélioration de l'élevage, de la tonte, de la collecte et du tri de la laine, et des phases de transformation ultérieures, fournit des indications et des spécifications pour une amélioration de le secteur. En Italie, il y a environ 8 millions de moutons qui produisent 12 millions de kilos de laine, dont 80% sont exportés vers l'Inde, la Chine et l'Europe du Sud-Est. Tandis que 10-15% sont utilisés pour un usage interne, 5-10% sont présumés dispersés. On parle donc d'environ 1 million de kilos. C'est parce qu'il est produit par des fermes de moins de 100 animaux ou dans des situations qui sont inaccessibles par les commerçants de la laine. Pour l'utilisation des laines sales qui restent sur le territoire italien, de nombreuses utilisations possibles ont été prises en considération au fil des années, allant du secteur textile pour la création de tissus destinés au secteur de la mode durable, aux processus artisanaux visant au développement des microéconomies rurales dans les secteurs du mobilier et des accessoires, ou dans le secteur des panneaux isolants et insonorisants, ou encore pour la réhabilitation des fonds marins et comme engrais organiques. Pour la production textile, la région de Biella est un lieu privilégié. Pour relever au mieux ce défi, la tradition séculaire de la transformation de la laine fait qu'il existe ici des compétences et des technologies adaptées pour obtenir la meilleure utilisation possible de ces laines. Le défi est de produire à partir de ces tissus des tissus attractifs pour le marché. Dans de multiples projets, l'Agence Lane d'Italia a démontré la possibilité de garantir une traçabilité totale des vêtements confectionnés, de la tonte de la laine à la confection, ayant également comme valeur ajoutée un impact environnemental réduit lié au transport, car toute la chaîne de travaux ont été effectués sur le même territoire. Les archives textiles, le patrimoine de la région de Biella et la mémoire du savoir-faire de générations entières de fabricants de tissus sont une source importante d'inspiration pour le design. Ici, il est possible de trouver des idées de design datant de l'époque où ces laines étaient utilisées, toujours très pertinentes aujourd'hui et donc facilement interprétables pour de nouvelles productions. La tâche des entreprises est de surveiller l'impact environnemental de leur production tout au long de la chaîne de production, en s'efforçant de réduire la consommation des ressources naturelles, les émissions polluantes et les déchets. Au fil des années, de nombreuses études et recherches ont été réalisées sur l'utilisation des laines piémontaises, toscanes, sardes, ainsi que des mérinos d'Arles pour le projet LARUTO, un projet de coopération transfrontalière Alcotra Italie-France pour la récupération aux fins de valorisation économique et culturelle de la laine, Merinos, Sambucana, du Pacà et du Val-Estura. Des collections de vêtements, d'accessoires et d'ameublement, de vêtements techniques et d'œuvres d'art ont été réalisées. Ce sont quelques exemples de ce qui a été réalisé grâce également à la collaboration qualifiée avec l'Anificio Piacenza. Des produits qui ont rencontré un succès considérable, notamment des articles de sport en tissu technique. La collaboration, même avec des artistes tels que Michelangelo Pistoletto et Ugo Nespolo, pour la création des tapisseries tissées à la main ou avec des designers de tapis est également très intéressante. Si, c'est la mostra Sustainable Thinking en Fondazione Ferragamo. Au cours de l'année dernière, l'Agence Lane d'Italie a souhaité mener un processus de recherche et d'études dans les différentes régions afin d'avoir un aperçu le plus détaillé possible de l'état de l'art du secteur ovin et de ses problèmes critiques, mais aussi d'initiatives et des startups innovantes qui se lancent dans le monde de la laine en étudiant des usages alternatifs. Une série de rendez-vous organisés en ligne sur une base mensuelle réalisée en collaboration avec l'association Gomitolo Rosa. Un véritable voyage que nous avons fait du nord au sud de l'Italie qui nous a permis de connaître l'identité de la laine italienne, les races présentes dans les différents territoires avec leurs valeurs numériques, leurs caractéristiques, celles en danger d'extinction et les quantités de laine produites. Ceci grâce à la contribution des universités avec la présence des enseignantes aux réunions qui nous ont donné un aperçu de la filière ovine présente dans la région. Mais la voix des éleveurs était importante car ils soulignaient leurs problèmes critiques, clairement liés à l'incapacité de collecter la laine par les commerçants, aux difficultés d'élimination, au manque de centres de collecte et de lavage, mais aussi des problèmes liés à la présence de grands prédateurs ou encore à ce qu'on peut appeler la mafia, liée à l'utilisation de pâturage, aux grandes difficultés qu'ils rencontrent pour se déplacer lors de la transhumance. Et enfin, nous avons également analysé l'utilisation de la laine dans les territoires, issus de petites coopératives qui récupèrent des traditions et des savoirs liés aux techniques de transformation comme le tissage manuel, le feutre ou la teinture avec des substances naturelles. Au lieu de cela, les plus innovantes et recherchées, comme celui de Acustica, qui a utilisé la laine pour insonoriser un théâtre, ou la start-up Agrivello de Chiara Spigarelli, qui utilise la laine pour fabriquer des granulés comme engrais, ou encore les expériences faites il y a quelque temps par Nini Fussone, qui, avec les femmes de la prison de Catane, a réalisé un projet très intéressant de création des accessoires, des sacs en feutre réalisés pour le brand Fendi. Et il y aurait tant d'expériences à raconter, mais surtout à valoriser et peut-être même à investir. Elles ne pourront certainement pas résoudre le problème des millions de kilos de laine, mais ce sont des exemples importants d'économie circulaire et de démarche durable à laquelle nous devons prêter attention aujourd'hui. Cette étude a été présentée lors de la journée de la laine, organisée par l'Agence Lane d'Italie avec l'association Gomitolo Rosa et Legambiente, événement annuel qui a lieu chaque année le 9 avril et qui rassemble tous les acteurs de la chaîne de la transformation de la laine, des éleveurs aux entreprises, en passant par l'institution, car ce n'est qu'avec un travail commun que nous pourrons espérer pouvoir trouver des solutions aux problèmes de laine indigène, devenue aujourd'hui une véritable urgence environnementale. Mais beaucoup de nos territoires s'identifient à cette fibre, en particulier Biella, la région textile par excellence où la transformation de la laine a façonné au fil des années le paysage, l'environnement, les hommes eux-mêmes, au point qu'elle est devenue l'identité propre du territoire. Et cette relation vertueuse entre l'activité de production textile et le patrimoine culturel et paysager est également devenue l'objet d'un important projet appelé Woolscape, qui voit plusieurs partenaires unis dans la promotion et la valorisation, notamment d'un point de vue touristique, de l'identité lanière du Biella. Le partenariat est composé de 4 entités, DOCBI, Fondazione Pistoletto, Fatia d'Arte et l'Agence Lane d'Italia, et entendent mettre en valeur les résultats d'un long chemin d'anthropisation influencé par 2 éléments générateurs, l'eau et la laine. L'interaction raconte à travers la combinaison de l'innovation et de la tradition les particularités du territoire, le patrimoine architectural, les ressources culturelles et naturalistes, les systèmes de production, les excellences artisanales, les villages et les sentiers, à partir de l'itinéraire naturel de la route de la laine, itinéraire d'archéologie industrielle entre Biella et Valsesia. La région de Biella semble être une zone savamment créée pour le traitement de la laine, un dialogue entre l'homme et la nature, une archéologie de l'expérience qui, au fil des années, est devenue l'épine dorsale de ce lieu. Mais aussi une industrie qui, en quelques décennies seulement du siècle dernier, a effacé les sillons tracés par le savoir artisanal et qui doit aujourd'hui regarder en arrière et récupérer cet héritage qui définit son identité. Une nouvelle géographie sentimentale, faite de connaissances et de gestes qui valorisent ces produits artisanaux, qui expriment et redécouvrent aujourd'hui l'âme du territoire. Cependant, un récit contemporain a été fait avec une proposition de produits en laine indigène, proposée comme élément du merchandising, lié à l'image du lieu lui-même et présent dans les bookshops de musées, dans les lieux habituellement fréquentés par les touristes. Enfin, la reconnaissance du processus de production au moment de l'achat amène le consommateur à être part d'une économie équitable qui doit avoir pour base une utilisation correcte de le bien de la terre parce que sera notre la responsabilité pour le bien-être des générations futures.
Merci, merci. Maggia, on a un message clair et je crois que ici à cette table ronde, on voit qu'il y a des points communs, donc absolument dans ça, même disons l'aspect qu'on a ici un niveau global, deux niveaux national et on va faire venir ici un troisième niveau national que c'est le niveau slovène qui participe, qui a fait des démarches, et j'invite Lucija White, qui est Project Officer at the Chamber of Agriculture and Forestry of Slovenia. I'm not saying it in Slovenian because otherwise it will be complicated. Thank you very much for coming here on this roundtable. And we heard Italy and France, what's going on, and also a global level. In Slovenia, there is a lot of underutilized wool, as we see in other countries too. You were a lead partner or partner of an Adrian project that was called Wool. Wool as an outstanding opportunity for leverage, which is, and there is a lot of context and similarities to also what we are doing here in this Alpine Space project. So you were on another geographical area, and we worked on cross-border collaboration on that project, and my questions are, what were the lessons learned that maybe we can also take to this project? And then there is another topic about merino crossbreeding, which is like, you have a strict approach about this topic. And what's your experience about this topic?
Thank you very much for the invitation to be part of this roundtable. So first of all, so I work on a project. Well, I worked on the last project that you mentioned, wool, but our institute has been also involved in some other projects. So working on promoting greater wool use in Slovenia for the last 10, 15 years, especially because we work primarily with breeders. So our institute is part of the support, the national support in Slovenia. So we support, we're like a link between the organizations that look after the breeding programs, so the official breeding programs, and we work with farmers. So we advise on which, we are part of the selection basically for the indigenous breeds. So the project Wool encompassed 10 different partners from 6 regions. So it was Friuli, Venezia Giulia, and Basilicata in Italy, and then Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Montenegro, and Larissa. So this is one town in Thessaly in Greece. So through the project, we realized that pretty much we all face similar problems in the sector of wool. So underutilization was obviously the common issue, and also the broken value chain in all these countries. So we have all the countries have rich tradition and really long tradition and rich heritage that's connected with shepherding and sheep breeding, but then the knowledge is slowly being lost in the whole like wool processing. The biggest issue was, of course, the washing process, so wool scouring. Facilities are gone, and there's only like 1 or 2 major processing facilities that still work with local wool. The problem, so there's various percentages of wool actually being used in these countries, and it ranged from anything between 5% of the total wool per country up until 70% was being used. So that means in some countries actually over 90% of the wool produced is discarded, it's waste. Then so one of the results was that we realized these countries have more or less small scale herds. It's okay. We can just put the next one. This was just about the institute. So this is pretty much just talking about what all the other members have already mentioned. The impact that shepherding and sheep have not just on the environment, but also on the diversity and the protection of the indigenous breeds, which is quite important. Sheep also, maintain landscape. They're very important agents for seed dispersal, things like that. Obviously, they provide us with meat and milk, and of course, wool. But here I wanted to talk more about the heritage aspect. So we realized that even though there's lots of issues in the sector, there's still quite a vibrant communities of small-scale processors, which was very encouraging. Lots of people still try and maintain the knowledge transfer between older generations and the newer generations. They try and promote more modern design, so not just the traditional products, and they're trying to keep the tradition alive. So the biggest help to the development of the sector would be educating stakeholders, like you mentioned before. Like, people have certain misconceptions about wool, so thinking, oh, it's a difficult fabric to maintain, or it's very itchy, or things like that, which are not necessarily true. And definitely these misconceptions are outnumbered by all the positive aspects of the fiber, all the positive aspects of wool. So educating consumers as well as stakeholders, especially, there's no strategy for wool. I think maybe policy makers should get more involved and offer more support, especially not just to the sector, but not the processing sector, but especially we talked about the breeders. So Marcus also spoke about how farmers have, so to speak, the smallest part of the cake, but they contribute almost the most, because they have to look after the animals, which is not easy. So adding more value also for them to give them some incentive. And I think wool has so many positive aspects, and also the effect that the wool can have on mental well-being is being more and more spoken about. And just the playfulness, you can see how many different products can be made, from craft product to technical products. It's just the options are limitless. And I think it's such a shame if it's all being wasted.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lucy, for that. Thank you for cooperation between white and white. Thank you very much. And no, I think it's very important. We saw this aspect of that are recurring in all interventions now that we had at this roundtable. And so there is, like, I think the need now really to federate. You Lucia, already you said already addressing policy, creating like specific policies on that, and then this would be like something that I will take then afterwards for the policy roundtable, and maybe discussing it also with the representative of the European Commission here to see if it's where we can help. I think this is also very important, and I think this aspect of reality that is there. So we are talking mostly about wool, but there are other fibers in the Alpine area that are important, but wool is something that is still here. We have the wool, we have the raw material. On other fabrics, we saw that also this morning. There are some the production is not anymore around. So, but here we have a lot of material that we can use, and we see how versatile it is to be used on different levels, not only for fabrics, but really the circularity in this aspect is so strong, and it's really an important discussion that we can make together, coming from the local level, going up to then a global level, because that's also the aspect that is very relevant. But I would like also to open to the public, if you have questions to this roundtable about what has been presented also before on the representations of the value chains in the Alpine area, and about what we heard here. We have I know that there are a lot of experts here about wool, people that are really working also on the field. I think it's very important also we as a project to see where we can also help you going in a direction to valorize the work. You mentioned the part of the producers, the breeders. I think this is in general a great topic in Europe at the moment, about the value that is given to the work that has been done on the agricultural side. Ms. Maggia said it's an agricultural act to be clothing is an agricultural act, which is it's an important thing that we have to maybe to have in mind. Also in the discussion that you said before, the narrative now is going in a different direction, and this would be maybe important to show that it's an agricultural value chain, that we a bit forgot about that. So I ask in the public if you have some interventions. If you don't want to, we have microphones here if you want to take the stage. Otherwise, you can also comment online. We take all the comments that are coming in today for our work. So if you have suggestions and you want to stay anonymous and saying, yeah, and also critics about what we are doing here, maybe it's fine. We are open to everything. Just do it. So is there some interventions from the public here? Yeah, the lady there. Yeah. Madame, vous pouvez utiliser le microphone. Ah non, pas de question. Okay. Pardon.
Sorry.
There's a question that in the back.
Yes, yeah. Sébastien Belclin from the International Center of Resources and Innovation for the Sustainable Development. I have a question for Pascal. I understood that there is a roadmap concerning the wool in France. Could you give more details about that, please?
Yes, it's been a lot of years now that local associations, many stakeholders in the stream are promoting the idea of using wool again, and now the French government, is listening to us. So that's a good news. I think the world is changing, and all the great work that have been developed so far made a difference. So last year in France, the Ministry of Agriculture asked for a study to be made on the wool stream in France by CGAER, which is an entity, a public entity. And they made this study with a series of recommendations from upstream to downstream. And we were proposed to make consultation with all the different stakeholders to create an answer from the ground, from the field. So that's what we are in the middle of doing right now. We received more than 60 different propositions, and we will be working on the synthesis in the forthcoming weeks. It's a long process. It's very difficult because it's a lot of stakeholders with many different points of view, but the most important is to give a clear voice from the industry to the government, because they can help us. It's obvious that it's not something that we can, it will take a lot of efforts, investment and money to if we want to do it properly and if we want to have a real impact. Patrizia, you mentioned the number of tons that are produced every year in Italy. In France, we have 10,000 tons, so that's also a big mass of wool. I don't have the figure for Europe, but accordingly to FAO, we have 98 millions of sheep in Europe. This is 1 more million than Australia and New Zealand together. Of course, we have sheep that produce less wool than Australia and New Zealand, but it's a big mass. So we are very happy, and we hope that these consultations will lead us somewhere. But once again, I want to take the advantage of this talk to make links with other countries. There's no boundaries. We have to really work together, adapt our methods so we can go in the same direction at the same path. I think that's very important if we want to be recognized. We could give the example of flax, linen and hemp at the European level that has managed to have a calculation of their own impacts. That's one example, but also for promotion, for logistics, for many different topics, I think that we should all work together. We are so small. And the result of the roadmap will be presented at the Ministry of Agriculture in France, in Paris, on the 16th of May. Thank you.
It's not so far away. So it's almost ready, I think. Yeah. So that's a big work. Yeah, Lucia.
You just reminded me something. Like in Europe, there's huge diversity in breeds, in local breeds, which have adapted to various environments, climates, and that's why that's actually directly reflected in the quality of the fibers. So the fiber can be, on average, it's more coarse. So merino is finer. That's what the industry wants. But I feel like perhaps finding the right use for each fiber should be the way forward. So waste less, trying to find different uses for what we actually have, because Siana mentioned crossbreeding with merino is perhaps not the best answer. Like in Slovenia, this was tested in the past, and it really backfired. It wasn't a good solution because the climate is too damp for merino, and it actually damaged the health of the animals. So these kind of I guess, attempts to improve the fiber are not always the best solution. So maybe trying to find, through breeding programs, improve the quality of the fiber through selection of the rams who have better quality, you can achieve quite a lot because it's a very hereditary property. So the fiber diameter. But also, I think even coarse wool can be quite elegant or interesting, you know, for any kind of other products that are not close to the skin.
Yeah, of course, Loden, nobody would wear Loden on the skin, so that's we know that that's a heritage, you know, and we use the wool that we had. So I think this is very important. So going back a bit on that and seeing, okay, we have also this huge biodiversity that we have in the world about sheep, and that's very important to preserve. And for the Alpine area, this aspect of biodiversity is also a very important aspect that is connected also to the landscape. So that's, I think, a very interesting also approach, the landscape approach, because it helps also people to understand what we are talking about. Because our landscape, also Walter Agnes says that in his presentation, is our landscape that we know is a result of farming and of the work that sheep do on the landscape. And I think this is very important. People can connect very much to the landscape because that's something that where they live in. So maybe they don't remember that this has been shaped by these animals and by the transhumans and all these kind of elements that are connected to the breeding in the Alpine area. And I think this is also a good approach to explain better about the different varieties that we have of wool and understanding where we can work on that. And in this project, we are trying also to go a bit in this direction. Pilot activities of the project go a bit in this direction to understand what can we do with the materials that we have in the Alpine area, and not having like the first layer because maybe it's not the right thing, and it's fine. There will be merino, and it's very important that it's still a natural fiber, and it's important. But on the other side, we can do a lot, and we saw that also on the Swiss level. We have this work with a quality of wool that is perfect for carpets. And so we see this diversity that can be used, and I think the examples that you brought here in, and also all the work that is done, is also to show this diversity that we can do with this material, and also with the innovations and startups that are working on the circularity of the whole value chain, and using also what we see as the last after having washed it and so on, seeing that we can use instead of burning it, making fertilizers and this kind of stuff. This is really important to show, and it's an answer to what we need to do in these areas where we need to be sustainable. We want to be sustainable. I think people also ask that, and we have a lot of solutions that are really connected to the heritage that we have. I think this is an aspect that is also there. That's also why this project is based on the heritage. We know how to do circularity in rural communities. And in the Alpine area, we know that, and we have not to lose it. We have to rediscover it, to innovate it, to create something new that is then giving the answers to all big issues that we have, to the sustainability issues, to the Agenda 2030 of the United Nations and so on. We have the solutions already in place. We just need like a click to understand it better, I think. And this can be on the local level, but also on the global level. I think this can be a discussion that we can bring also on an international level.
Yes, absolutely. It's absolutely vital that we will be discussing that at a global level, because what you have touched on is the most important point, I think, in this conversation, to support our farmers, to support our industry, to support our local industries, is what are we going to tell consumers in the future is sustainable. So we in this room, I think, have agreed that wool is sustainable. But if you ask the consumer in the street, would they say the same thing? Or have we demonized our animals to the extent where they think, oh, we should have less sheep? I've had conversations with legislators that tell us we should have less animals because they consume too much water. There are conversations around that that are not supporting what we are saying on the stage here. When I joined the wool industry almost 20 years ago, my mentor was Italian, and he said to me, Dalena, you will discover that the wool industry is very good at telling each other how good we are. That is great in this forum, that we tell each other how good we are, how much we care for our farmers. But if we do not enable the retailers out there to sell our product, we're dead in the water. And this trend of declining wool farmers, 30% in 10 years, is terrible. The trend of declining wool products on our consumer shelf is terrible. If we do not do something drastic about how the consumer perceives wool and sustainability in future, all this good work will be wasted. So I am really concerned about how are we going to get this message out there. I often have conversations in Brussels where people say to me, I would love to buy more wool product, but you know it's not available on the shelf. Why is that? Why is the buying manager of H&M not putting wool on the shelf instead of polyester? And unless we fix that problem, we're not going to fix our farmers and that little bit of money that they're getting on that chart. That is not a sustainable business plan. So we have some work to do.
Absolutely. I think that it's really important. And consumers are, in this project, an important part. We have Emily here working on that aspect very strongly to understand how we can motivate also, again, consumers to ask then in the shops, and then the whole thing starts again to be there, and having them more availability, more consciousness of the consumers of what we're talking about. And I think that the aspect of consumers is central on that, because this is also a discussion that we need to make on the perception of fabrics, on the knowledge of what on the qualities that fibers have. And this is an aspect that in this project we are trying to discuss. We will have the next roundtable then after the coffee break, which will talk about consumers, and it will be like Emily and the research team that made a lot of research and ask consumers if they are willing to pay more, or if they are interested in the sourcing of the material, because this is at the end, as you said, we need also on that side having like somebody that's asking for that, and not just buying what is put in a shelf. And maybe to the person that asks you, I would like to buy more, maybe they don't have to go to H&M first at the beginning. Maybe we have to tell them to go at the beginning, but maybe then we come into the direction that also at the big level, there will be more of these fibers, natural fibers, used at that level. Because I think this is also the goal of every of the work here, to have an impact, and the impact you have then on the bigger scale. That's absolutely clear.
I think it's also maybe consumers need to be aware how much effort is put into producing something that's made out of wool. And I think once you establish that connection, I think they are willing to pay more. But in the beginning, I think people, when they see, I don't know, a pair of woolen socks, they're like, oh, I'm not going to pay 20 euros because in H&M they're like 5, you know. But then when somebody explains how much effort goes into keeping the animals, processing the fiber and everything, I think they make that connection with the material.
You're exactly touching on the right thing. And we're expecting in our world today of the retailer to explain to the consumer why our wool product is better. And let's be clear, the retailer makes 3 times as much money on a polyester garment than on a wool garment. So he's not going to spend his marketing budget on explaining to the consumer why they should buy the wool socks. So that is the question we need to deal with. I think we are facing the same issue as we faced in the 80s with big tobacco, where it's going to take education of the consumer, but it is absolutely going to take regulation as well, because we are facing a textile pollution issue, and it's not caused by natural fibers. And that's what we need to fix.
And what would you need from a project like this on your in your tools to discuss that on these levels? What could be a result that comes out of a discussion like this for you?
And that's a very important question, because when these projects are formulated, I think we need to come up with the right answer. And as we always say, we cannot manage what we do not measure. And what you're doing at the moment is measuring. And it is super important that we have the right data to take to the authorities when we speak about legislation, about whom we're speaking about. Now, the World Organization for Animal Health tells us that 300 million of the poorest families in the world are depending on a couple of sheep or goats for their weekly income. Now, let's be clear, if we take these away, we will have to find something else for them to do. We have to understand the socioeconomic impacts of our farming communities and of agriculture. We have to understand the effect they have on our biodiversity. We have to really measure the effect, and that is what you're doing with this project. You are measuring where we are right now, and that means that we can take the measures to improve. But we need the data, and I think that's a very important part of the project.
Thank you to our team that is gathering data and making them also readable, because it is also the thing which is also, I think, one of the most difficult things that we are doing. It's to understand what the figures, to compare them, because it's very difficult to have this. And so I think, we have a work to do also as a project, so it's a common, a lot of work to do. And I think
together.
And I think this together is very important. And I thank you very much for being here at this roundtable and to show a bit different perspectives. But at the end, we saw that we have commonalities, and that the togetherness in a topic is always winning, and I think maybe we can have an impact then for the future of this textile ecosystem in the Alpine area, but not only, because I think this is important that it's a global theme.